book lovers, my name is Christina and welcome back to Cozy Novel Niche. Today I'm here with my very first review of 2024, and it is for a book that I just recently completed and finished reading for my in real life book club that I have at my job. And for this month, or better for the months of December to January, so for the holidays, we decided to go with Neverwhere by Neil Gaiman. And if you've clicked on this video, you know that this is gonna be a review, and just so that you will know, it's a spoiler-free review in which I will try and give you a general idea of what the book is about and what I loved or didn't enjoy it that much, but still without giving you any spoilers, because it's a bit of a chunker. It's almost like 400 and something pages, and so yeah, you may safely watch this video. I won't spoil you the fun of reading this book. So first things first, this is Neverwhere by Neil Gaiman, and this specific edition is an illustrated edition, and this one was published, I believe, in 2017, but the book itself, the first edition of the book, was published in the UK in 1996, I think. So it's not a new story whatsoever, but it's still one that may be worth it for you to read. And let's dive a little bit deeper. So this edition, the 2017 edition, is actually a combination of the UK edition and the US edition that was released much later. And the reason for them to be different is that at the beginning the author released the book in the UK, and the book is set in London, and so when he released the book for the US public, he had to go back to the book and just fix some parts, explain a little bit more of what London looks like, what like the tube looks like, because if you're a Londoner, of course you don't need that many explanations. But if you're a foreigner, then you absolutely need to have a little bit more of a general overview of what you need to imagine while you're reading the book. And this specific edition is just the collection of the two, and a little bit of editing here and there, plus a lot of lovely illustrations by Chris Riddle, I think, yes, by Chris Riddle. And I own a paperback edition, and the very first thing that I need to tell you is that if you're planning to get for yourself this book and you want the illustrated edition, then I would suggest you to go with a hardcover, because the paperback is absolutely lovely and it has a lot of beautiful illustrations. But then, I'm looking for a part, like there are illustrations throughout the pages, but then there are some parts where the illustration gets lost in the binding, and so it's a little bit of a pity. You don't want to crack the book because it's not a floppy one, so you cannot open it fully, and I don't want to crack the spine too much and to ruin the book completely, so I'm trying to read it like that and just to see the pictures. So if you want to go for it, and for the illustration, the illustrated edition, again, it's very, very beautiful, you can do so, absolutely, but I would suggest you to go with the hardcover, because the paperback is lighter and lovely, but the hardcover really does it for the illustrations. And so this is the final form of this book, apparently, and the author hints to the idea sooner or later maybe to get back to this world and write another book, but so far we have no news about it, and this is a standalone. And this is a fantasy, but it's an urban fantasy, so it's not a high fantasy where we have like dragons and an unknown realm. This book is set in London, and specifically in London below, so everything that happens under the belly of London, where a whole community of people lives and thrives, and it's a community of people with some quirks and a bit of magic, but it's not too much in your face, and it's more like quirky and a little bit ambiguous, and you're not very sure if it's magic or not. So it's a fantasy. It's a fantasy that can be enjoyed even by people who are not hardcore fantasy readers. The book itself is characterized by the unique sense of humor of Neil Gaiman and his imagination. So if you've ever read anything by Neil Gaiman prior to this one, then chances are that you will enjoy it if you enjoyed some other of his books. But what he does in this one is to definitely take some of the fantasy tropes and just turn them all over again, and not to follow them, like to present them, but not to follow them all throughout the tropes that we're used to love or hate. So there are some that maybe you will see coming, but they will bring you in a completely different direction. For starters, this book is like the journey of a hero, but a hero with air, like quote marks, because we're following Richard, and Richard is a young man. I believe that he's 29 years old or something like that, and he moves to London at the beginning of the story, and he lives a normal life. He has a job, he's renting an apartment, he has a fiance, but then you're seeing that maybe he's not exactly content with his life. His fiance is quite horrible to him, and I don't know why he loves her, but yeah, they're still together, and everything seems on track in his life, and everything seems quite okay until one day he meets a girl on the floor, like on the pavement of London, and she's bleeding, and he wants to help her. And this is the start of everything for him. So this is the reason why his fiance goes completely ballistic at him, because she wants to get to a restaurant in time, and he wants to help a bleeding girl, and so she's mad at him. That's the kind of fiance he has, and he just wants to help this girl. And from there, his whole life kind of changes, because that girl is not from London above, she's from London below. And he goes on this adventure, and apparently on this hero journey, but he's no hero whatsoever. He is not the chosen one, he has no magical powers, he knows nothing about the reality in which he ends up traveling around and trying to just get it back to his life at a certain point. And this is the journey of a hero, but in a very unconventional way, because he doesn't want to be a hero. He doesn't have the main equipment and the main characteristics that a hero needs to have, like the will to do something, or the power to do something, or even just the desire to do something. He's pretty much passive throughout the whole story, and everything kind of happens around him because he doesn't know what's happening, like almost 99% of the time. And so in that aspect, it's definitely the journey of an unwilling hero who doesn't know what's happening. If I have to describe it, it's probably like more of the wrong time in the wrong place kind of hero. So yeah, absolutely nothing here that happens is intentional as far as the hero Richard is concerned. But then we have a lot of other characters that are so well described that you can definitely vividly imagine them, and not all of them are very defined and have this huge background. So in this aspect, the book is almost like fairy-like, because you don't have this huge exploration of their background, of their story, of their motivations. They're just there for the moment that the reader comes and sees them doing something. But it still has its own charm. If you like that kind of books, this may definitely work for you if you don't need a lot of background. And Neil Gaiman himself, he says in the back of the book that he loves that some things happen in between lines and in between paragraphs that he doesn't have to explain to the reader. He lets a lot to the imagination of the reader. So sometimes we have some minor time jumps that you have to fill in with your own imagination and just try and see what happened in between those lines, how he ended up here, and it makes sense to you at the end. You don't feel really lost, but you need to use a bit of your imagination. So if you like doing so, again, one more reason to enjoy this book. Something else that is very modern in a sense is that in this book pretty much every character that you meet have like a gray morality. I don't know if I will even call it a gray morality. It's just like a complete lack of morality, or better, a complete lack of morality as we intend morality. And they're just living by their own rules in a completely different world. So like the idea of good and evil, of what's right and what's wrong, is definitely completely different from what we're used to and from what we live in the London above, for example, because the book is set in the London below and it's a completely different world. Like things don't work like we're used to them working. Yeah, that's the correct order of the worlds. I'm sorry, I am just such a mess with English recently, but I'm definitely trying to get back on track, and the more videos I will film, the better I will get, I assure you, but just bear with me, please. At the end of the day, in this story, the protagonist is kinda almost inconsequential, and I know that it may sound sad, but the real protagonist probably is the city itself and just the atmosphere and the whole mood of the book, because often it's not the inner world of the character or like even the actions of the character himself that bring the narration forward. It's what happens to the world around and what other characters do, sometimes even minor characters, background characters. And so it's really like the protagonist of the book is more like the city that the author describes than the character himself. Something else that is quite unique to this book is the tone of voice and the style of the narrator, because the tone of voice of the narrator, if you enjoy the first pages, then you will probably enjoy the rest of the book, is very sarcastic and ironic, and it definitely loves some puns and to just throw a joke here and there in the book. So you really need to enjoy that kind of humor. It's a little bit of a dry and dark humor in some parts, definitely, but again, it's written by an English author, so I mean, I'm kind of used and expect it almost when I read something by Neil Gaiman at this point. It's not my first book that I've read by him. I've not read every book written by him, but I'm at a great point at this point. Pun not intended. And yeah, I definitely can see that it's written by him. You really can feel his presence behind the narrating voice in this book. As far as my personal opinion is concerned, then I enjoyed reading this book. It's not one of my favorites of all time whatsoever, and I have a bit of a history with this book. And it's that I read it for the first time, I guess more than 10 years ago. Probably I was like in high school or at university, and I read it in Italian, and I remember that I did not enjoy the experience. To the point that I gave away the book. I did not enjoy it that much. I loved Stardust, and it's to this day one of the books that I cherish, that I own. And Neverwhere, I just gave it away. It wasn't for me. And I was thinking about why, and I think that it's because I changed as a reader and I've grown up, plus like I got used to more books like this, like more books where not necessarily we have a happy ending, not necessarily we have happy-go-lucky story or just a typical fantasy story, because now fantasy changed a lot. It's a book with, again, grey morality, and I wasn't used to that back in the day. And the fact that the story was set in this like grime, dark, dirty setting of the underbelly of a city, I wasn't a fan. I wanted like flowy dresses and beautiful elves and stuff like that, and this wasn't definitely my cup of tea. And now when I reread it, I actually enjoyed it that much more, probably because I'm more of an adult right now. Yeah, I can say it. Probably 32 is a good moment to consider myself an adult. And I just kind of accept these kind of stories more. I'm more used to them and they don't bother me. And I got the humor of the author so much more, because some of the things he jokes about, like some of the dark jokes, are about the reality of living as an adult in our modern world, and it hits the spot right now. And when I was younger, it went kind of over my head. Plus, like, all the relationships that our main character has in this book, like for example at the beginning with his horrible fiance. When I was small, I wasn't really caring about it that much. I don't remember thinking about it a lot. This time when I was reading it, I was like, this is a toxic relationship, why are you in this relationship? So I definitely had some more like instruments in my hand to understand better this story and to just delve into it a little bit more. On this note, I also need to tell that there are a couple of things that rubbed me the wrong way in this book, and without getting any spoilers to you, there are a couple of moments in this book specifically where the narrator slash the main protagonist of the story describes a character, like different characters, female characters that are young or apparently young, as someone who can potentially be desirable. Like one time he thinks about kissing someone who looks very, very young and you never know how old this character is. And one other time, and that's the part that really rubbed me the wrong way, is that he describes, he looks at a girl who's eating a banana and she's a very young girl. She's described as a very small and young girl again, and he looks at her and thinks that she's eating that banana in the most unsexy way possible. And that put me off the book so much. Like, it's the only time that he mentions something like that through all the book. And this is the part when I read it, I was like, why you've not re-edited it? You edited this book. This is a more recent version. Why you kept it? Why you've not removed it? Like, for the sake of everything that's good. Like, why? It didn't age well, and I was not a fan of it. Again, it's the only moment in which he makes this kind of like thought or description of the character, but it was again disturbing. Like, why you have to associate the banana with the sexy thing? Like, come on, we can do so much better than that. I mean, so yeah, that was like the downside for me. On the other hand, I can say that I kind of enjoyed the ending of the book too. I won't tell you, of course, what it is, but I enjoyed it. Plus, at the end of the book, we have, in this edition, you have an extra story, and it was lovely to get back to the character of which this, so in which, of which, to the character that is the protagonist in this last story. So I really enjoyed that aspect. At the end, what I loved of this book, like not only the things that I've said to you before, is also that there are some quotes that really hit the spot for me, and they were actually meaningful. Like, for example, this one that I will read to you, and I won't show you the book so you won't know at what point of the book this quote comes, but it really resonated with our day and age and our way of living and thinking. And the quote is, "What you want?" And the answer is nothing. I really don't want anything. Nothing at all. And then he realized how true that was and how dreadful a thing it had become. Have you ever got everything you ever wanted and then realized it wasn't what you wanted at all? And I don't know, this resonated so much with me. I mean, this is something that I think about in our days a lot, because we have a fast access to so many things that you end up not having desires or aspirations or just like dreams anymore sometime. And this made me think a lot. So we still have like this growth for our main character, who goes through highs and ups, and he tries to learn who is he. He starts as a young, uncertain boy. I won't tell you how he ends, but for sure there is a moment when a character looks at him and says something like, he seems different, nothing has changed, but he seems less boyish and more like a man. So there is a growth for our main character in this too. And I've rambled a little bit about this book. It's a little bit all over the place, so sorry for it. But I hope that if you've never read this book, it will make you want to read it. Or if you read it and not enjoyed it when you were young, as it happened for me, maybe this video will be useful for you to revisit it or to listen to it, just to see if your opinion changed, because mine changed, and I think that I will keep this edition. First of all, because it's very, very beautiful, and second, because I think that I would love to reread it, maybe when I am much more an adult than that, and see what else I can get from this story. So yes, this was my non-spoiler review for Neverwhere by Neil Gaiman. I hope that you enjoyed it, and if you read it, please let me know down below what was or is your opinion about the book, or if you've read any other book by Neil Gaiman, because again, I've read a lot but not all of his books. And thank you so much for watching this video, and I will see you very soon in my next one. Bye! Ciao!